Hello, I'm Mark Glazier, founder of NutraBio Labs, here to talk to you for just a couple minutes about the quality of the ingredients that go into NutraBio supplements. Now, the basics for any quality product is the foundation, which are the raw materials that go into it. If they are not of the highest quality, then the finished product can't be. Now, I take this very seriously, which is why I don't trust manufacturing to anybody. I do it myself right here in my own FDA registered and FDA inspected GMP facility. This facility has been audited multiple times by the FDA under 21 CFR 111 regulations. It's been audited by the USDA as a dairy facility. It's been audited by the state as a food facility, and so on and so on. So if you've seen any of our videos, you see this is a pretty high-tech facility. So why am I standing here around all these barrels and drums? It's not really the nicest part of the facility, but it's because this room right here, this portion of the facility, is probably the most important part of my facility. This is a quarantine and holding area for all raw materials that come in to my facility. You see, I don't trust manufacturers, I don't trust vendors to ship stuff to me. Once it comes in here, every single batch of every single raw ingredient that ever goes into one of my products stops right here, gets quarantined here, will go into a sampling room, a clean room sampling room, where samples will be taken, will go into our lab. The first part is our lab will test every single batch of every single ingredient to make sure it's what it's supposed to be. If it passes our testing, it will then go to a third party outside lab to further test it to make sure every single ingredient lives up to the high specifications that we set for it. Once approved by that lab and then approved by our lab, it is allowed to leave this holding facility and go into our warehouse, where it then can go into the production facility. Let's take a look at some of the testing that we do in-house. Okay, so once we've quarantined the ingredient in the facility next door, the holding facility, we'll take a sample and we'll bring it into this room. Now, this room is level 1 in quality control analysis. It's the first step, and what we're doing here is a test to make sure that the ingredient is what it's supposed to be. It's called identity testing. And we will do this test for every single batch of every single raw material that we bring into this facility. Not only the batch itself, but we will take full samples, representative samples of the entire batch, to make sure that we know that all the containers are what they're supposed to be. Now, this is called FTNIR, which stands for Fourier Transform Near Infrared Spectroscopy. What this does with a laser is it'll analyze the ingredient, and it'll create a spectrogram of the ingredient and compare it to a reference sample and tell us whether this is exactly what it's supposed to be. We'll then do other testing here, maybe pH testing, organoleptic testing, particle size testing, to further prove out that that ingredient meets first levels of our specifications. If it does, a second sample will be prepared and sent to a third-party certified lab. And in that lab, we test for purity, potency, composition, and contaminants. So we want to make sure that our specification is met exactly. For example, our creatine monohydrate, the specification is 99.97%, near perfect or higher. Once we've identified it here to be creatine monohydrate, that third-party lab has to show us that it's contaminant-free, it reaches that 99.987%, and there's nothing in there that's going to hold us back from releasing it. If the third party passes it, once we pass it, then the quality control lab can release it from our holding facility and finally allow it to go into our normal warehouse, where it can be released into production. In this way, we know that every single ingredient that we put in our finished product and create a product that's going to end up in your home has been tested completely, and we know it matches our specification, our degree of perfection, and then we have a product that gives you what we promised and that gives you the results that we promised. And that's the level of testing that we go through on every single raw material before it's released from this facility.